Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, your host, and today I'm here with Amy Lenius. And I think that this is something that's critical. We as women, a lot of us go through chronic illness or chronic pain or chronic anything, and we usually just poo-poo it off because we have children to deal with, we have a business to deal with, we have a husband to deal with. And so we don't really talk about it. And so Amy is on today, and we are going to talk about holistic healing, about her story, and just some tips that can help you be able to make it through your day, make it through your week. So Amy, without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself to our guests?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I just want to celebrate you for a second. Thank you so much for having a platform where we can have these beautiful discussions. Right before we started recording behind the scenes, you and I quickly touched on how it's very lonely and how we all experience chronic illness differently, but yet we can connect on the emotions and the things that we go through. So thank you so much for this platform and for a chance to share my story. So my name is Amy Lenius. I grew up with chronic illness. I grew up with a condition called endometriosis. And so very female, hormonally driven. And so that started shortly after I went through puberty. And it was a long road of being told, oh, well, welcome to womanhood. And this is just your life now. And this is how your body's going to work. It's going to be painful all the time. Welcome, enjoy. And after that, it was just a long road of being in pain, being different from everyone else around me, finally getting diagnosed, having piles of surgeries, different drugs, medications, hormone therapies, birth controls. And it was a hard time. To put it in a nutshell, it was a very hard and challenging time. And then I went through this time of transformation, of clarity, and then stepped into a more empowered state into healing. And it's just been a pretty incredible journey since that moment.
It is a journey. And I think I have to ask, did some people think that you were making stuff up or it was in your head or you're trying to get attention?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, like this is just your life now as a developing woman. Don't be so dramatic. Welcome to womanhood. These are just my favorite ones were, oh, these are just normal female problems. I felt so unseen and so unheard. And there was something wrong with me.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I can totally feel because we know our bodies. And a good example is, let's see, a week and a half ago, I was experiencing severe ear pain. So I went to the doctor and I said, hey, doc, he's newer with me. It's only been a year that I've seen him. And anytime I go, it's usually I'm traveling. And so I'm trying to preempt the pain that I know I'm going to experience. And so I said, I've got a horrible pain in my left ear. And he's like, oh, it's probably just allergies. You just probably have the postnasal drip. And I said, So allergies cause the entire side of my neck to be on fire all the way down my shoulder. I said, I don't think it's allergies. Will you please look in my ear? And I said, my throat to swallow, it's killing me. And so he looks in this ear. He's like, you're totally fine. I said, I know, it's this ear. And so he finally looks, he goes, oh, yeah, it's infected. I go, yeah, I know what an earache feels like. I've been in the ER with it before, right? But he never would look in my throat. And so then I'm like, it's hurting down here. It's hurting my arm. Wouldn't even touch that. And so I think that we as women have to learn to advocate for ourselves and say, no, I know my body and this isn't right. It doesn't feel right. And if you can't get the person to listen to you, then go to somebody else and keep fighting until you do. So is that what you did in order to finally get the diagnosis?
It was that. And then it was even stepping further into that as much as I could. It was really, yes, discovering that I do have a voice that, hey, maybe I do know my body better than the professionals that are telling me what is what and what isn't. And self-advocacy, I would say, is one of the biggest lessons I've learned that helped me even in that moment build self-belief, build self-worth, and build just this voice and this intuitive understanding that I do know my body better. And I do know what pain is normal for me. I know what pain is different for me. I know what pain is for me. And that has just been one of the biggest things that I speak into women's lives is that you do know. It's okay if you don't know the proper terms. It's okay if you don't know the medical terminology or anything like that, but you do know when you feel good and you do know when you don't. And that's when it's time to ask for help and be empowered when you ask for help. Like you said, if this person is not aligning with you, if you don't feel seen, heard, and validated, or at least supported or trying to be understood, then it is time to go see somebody else.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. And a gynecologist is one of those things, very, very personal. And if they're not listening to you, I mean, I love mine. I ended up having a hysterectomy in December because I was crawling on the floor in so much pain. I'm like, this isn't right. Something's wrong. He's like, well, Sharice, I can't figure it out, all the tests, but let's just yank him out. And he kept one so that I don't have to go through menopause so quickly. But it worked. Like all the
Mm.
pain is gone. And so it doesn't make any sense because the test came out all in the normal ranges and things, but he goes, a lot of times this is what happens. And I'm serious, I've never felt better. And
Oh,
so I really, you have to get that person that's willing to fight for you as well, because then you have to go through insurance. So,
yes, definitely.
um, so how is understanding yourself on a deeper level as we switch gears going to help serve you? Because I know as you've gone through this journey, how has it helped you?
Yeah, it has been a long journey of understanding that we're only as capable of feeling good physically as we are mentally, and vice versa. So if we're feeling miserable and not great physically, it's going to affect our mental health.
Yeah.
But also, we can only heal physically as far as our mental health is going to allow us to. And so we talk about them like they're separate things, when in reality, they go hand in hand. Picture one on each foot. If this is your physical health and this is your mental health, well, you can only go so far with one foot before you're walking in circles. You need to take that next step. And so just discovering things about yourself, who you are, what matters most to you, how you can find joy, peace, passion, purpose, all of that is linked to your physical health. And so once I started feeling better physically, and I would hit these just kind of milestones, or I guess almost like a glass ceiling, where I couldn't seem to get any further, I knew it was time to switch into, okay, well, where do I need to heal mentally? And just taking those steps forward, which sounds easier than it was. It was a very complicated process for sure. I know when we don't feel good, we would love to hear, here is this one thing that can help you, and you will be healed and you will be fixed, and off you go. But these journeys, I mean, that's exactly what they are. They are. They're journeys. I've been on it for, I mean, a decade now, let's say, that I've been working on becoming pain-free and more self-aware, and then expanding from there. But I think it's time we stop talking about them separately and realize that they are intertwined just as much as our internal environment. So
Mhm.
all of this is a byproduct of our external environment, and vice versa. When we are feeling crummy inside, it reflects out into our external environment. So all of these things are not separate, they're a community. And so stepping into, okay, which one needs most of my attention right now? Because we can't do all things all at once as much as we would love to. I always hear women say, well, if I could just find some balance, if I could find balance between this and this, it's like, well, you can't, because that's saying balance is such BS. It's like saying we can do all things all at once equally. And we can't. We can't. We need to find a state of flow, a state of harmony where we flow in and out of things intentionally. And then, with a grace and acceptance that we can't be all things all at once. I can't be mom 100% right now as I'm here in this. My mom hat is kind of off right now. Mom hat might be slightly poor example because we always slightly have that mom hat on, right? I'm hyper aware of what my children are doing right now, but they don't have my full attention. So that hat is off right now. And my passion, purpose, business hat is on right now. And we can flow in and out instead of me trying to do simultaneously both. And our health is the same way.
And I love that you talk about that we cannot balance. Like I do not talk about that on this podcast because you can't. I'm a mom of six. No, you can't, right? And so it's juggle. I like to use a kind of a word because as you have a ball up in the air, then you can have another ball that you're holding on to and you throw another ball because you have to be able to, I mean, you literally are juggling everything. And so sometimes the balls drop and we just scoop them back up and we start over again. This touches a chord for me because I live in pain every single day of my life. And I had been diagnosed with MS at one point and went through a divorce and I didn't have MS anymore. And so it's either I was misdiagnosed or the stress went away. Who knows? Because how can you, with spinal taps, like it shows all of those things, those bands. But I think that it's really important to identify that you're right. Mental health absolutely affects the physical, and the physical affects the mental. And it wasn't until I started writing my book, Flipping the Iceberg, that I realized how much trauma that I was holding on to, because I actually had to take 6 months off and just decompress. Like, wow. And even I just came back from my hometown last weekend, and Monday and Tuesday, I felt like I was a little bit of a mental wreck because, like, what is going on with me? And I'm like, okay, I'm coming back with all of those childhood experiences that were not the most pleasant. And so I think that it is so important to identify that. So, how did you identify, okay, my mental is starting to affect my physical? And what did you do to help yourself?
It was really focused around stress in the beginning. It was understanding and learning about my hormones. So, in a few, let's say a few years into my journey, I had this shift in my pain. It was different, it was new, and it was very aggressive, and it kept getting worse day by day by day. And so I ended up in the ER a few times that week. And I got sent home constantly being said, like, it's just your endometriosis flaring up. This isn't anything new for you. Here's some heavier drugs. Go sleep it off. It was one of those moments where my diagnosis didn't serve me. It put me into a box where no one would look at anything else.
Mhm.
And so I think on like the fourth or fifth time I went in that week, I finally just said, look, like I am not leaving until someone gives me a test, looks at it differently. I feel like I'm dying. I feel like I'm slipping away here. And that was the moment I really stepped into that first big self-advocacy moment where I felt like I needed to do something, say something for myself. And finally, the doctor that day was so lovely. He's like, oh my gosh, you've been in here a few times this week. Like, we need to get some tests going. What are we doing? And I had an ultrasound and was instantly rushed into surgery. I had a cyst burst on my ovary and it didn't close. I had an internal bleed.
Oh my gosh.
So I was bleeding to death internally and would have died if they kept sending me home and drugging me heavier. And so after that debacle was all dealt with, I knew that I needed to step into more healing, do more of what I could, because after that, it was like, okay, maybe it's time for a hysterectomy. And I was like, I'm so young. I have two littles at home. I don't. I don't have the kind of capacity to do 6 weeks of full healing where I'm not picking up littles. Like 6 weeks is a long time, and you need those 6 weeks to properly recover from something like that. As you know, you've gone through that. And so it was just, okay, what is the next step for me? And then I found this awesome naturopathic doctor who started looking at me as a whole person. Wasn't just like, okay, what's your uterus up to today? Like, no, like, what's your liver function like? What's your gut health like? How is your stress? And then we got talking about that. And then, like, I have a background in anatomy and physiology. So that combined with my experience with my sickness and his knowledge, it was just such a powerful trifecta of like, oh, when I am stressed, it naturally takes from my progesterone. And endometriosis, typically you have low progesterone, which causes all your problems. And so it was just this really powerful awakening of, oh my goodness, I also need to address my stress. And so as I developed these stress related coping mechanisms, and it's not like I was going through anything crazy. It was just two young kids. I mean, I guess two young kids, chronic illness, like it is a lot. I shouldn't just like brush that under the rug. But it's day-to-day stress for us as women, compounds for us. It's our bodies are responding to our day-to-day stress as if we're running by from a bear constantly. Our bodies don't know the difference. Our brains don't know the difference, and it treats our body as such. So our hormones decrease, our gut function decreases, and our stress hormone rises so that we can keep fighting the bear or running from the bear. When in reality, it's just these day-to-day things that we're not addressing, and we're not taking the time to slow down and honor and take care of ourselves. You talked about juggling. Well, what happens if the juggler falls down?
Mhm.
So do all the balls, right? And it's harder to pick them back up.
It is.
So you as the juggler are so important and valuable that you need to be pouring that time into yourself. And so even just embodying that type of mentality that I do deserve to be taken care of was a huge part of it. I'm sure you've noticed this in the chronic illness community. There's a lot of It's almost like this victim mentality where you know they're never going to step into something that is going to help them because they feel like they can't. They feel like it's not going to be worth it for them if underlying thoughts are they're not worthy of healing. And so addressing self-belief and self-worth is where all of this has expanded into for me, because I would get women so far in their healing or so far with like these practices, these habits at home, healthy stress habits and things, and then they would stop. And I
Mhm.
couldn't understand why. And it was the mental aspect of it. They either didn't believe they could keep it up or they didn't believe they were worthy of continuing to do it. And so that's where all of that has expanded into as well.
And I want to add one more. It's probably a little controversial that they have labeled themselves for so long that that has become their identity and they're not able to give up that identity. Like for me, I mean, yes, I've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So I know many fibromyalgia people who lay in bed all day and that's their excuse and they go on disability because of it. And I'm training for a marathon right now, right? And so, and if you saw my life, it's crazy. So I refuse to let that label, although some days I'm in pain and I might lay on the couch or lay in bed for a couple hours, but I don't mentally. I believe that your mind is greater than your body. And I had this conversation with my daughter because for the last 2 years, she's identified herself as gluten-free. She says that the gluten hurts her. Now, I believe that, and I'm not discounting her because I have a gluten intolerance, but I refuse to give up bread. And so I was able to work through it. And, sometimes, yeah, I don't feel very good, especially if I eat pasta, not enjoyable, or pizza or something. But I'm still going to eat a piece if I want it, right? For her, she like, oh my gosh, when she goes to Subway, she makes people change their gloves because of the gluten and cross-contamination. And yet she's not celiac. We've diagnosed, like we've had those tests, we've had those things, but she has identified for that. And so, yeah, like 2 days ago, I'm like, hey, why don't you start telling yourself that you are okay, that you don't need these things or, all these different things. And she looked at me like, no way, I will never do that. And I thought, wow, and I don't know her body, so I'm not discounting that whatsoever. But what I am saying is, I do believe sometimes when people, you hear stories, I've had guests on my podcast where they've been able to cure themselves of cancer through meditation and through different things. Your mind is an incredible thing and it can tell your body and your brain what to do. Because if you get into the brain stuff, your brain doesn't know until you tell it. So if you're constantly saying, I have a gluten allergy, I have a gluten allergy, I have a gluten allergy, your body's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to freak out. And so for some, not for everyone, but for me, if I tell myself I'm not going to let this get me today, I typically, although still painful, I can get through the day. And so I
Mhm.
think that sometimes that isn't talked about as much. And we tend to become, like you said, a victim rather than a victor. And so I'm just curious, do you agree? Do you disagree? I'm wondering.
I 100% agree. Identity is it's the most powerful piece of our mindset. And so if we believe I am sickness, I am endometriosis, I am gluten intolerant, I am
Mhm.
that, that's all you're going to be able to expand into. You won't even feel like you can expand anywhere different because it is who you are. Versus, I experience these things.
Mhm.
This is who I am, but I experience these things. I experience endometriosis. I experience pain some days. It's an entirely different energy. One is very, yeah, like you said, this victim mentality, like I said, and it's also one is very empowered.
Mhm.
They're the same. You can be the same person. The same person can have the same condition, and one is very disempowered and one is very empowered. They are doing what they can. They understand that if one thing doesn't work for them, the next thing might. They're going to try the next thing. They're searching for people who have been through what they have been through and are now healing or have healed. And
Mhm.
so that they build the belief from, and belief is a part of our identity, a huge part of our identity. Our core beliefs, our
Mhm.
core values, and our core aspirations build up our identity. And so if you have these beliefs that you can chase, you're going to not only believe that it's possible, you're going to start believing it's possible for you. And those are two different things as well, but that's a huge part of our identity, believing that it's possible for somebody. I had a lot of women say, well, that's nice for you, but it's not possible for me.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
And that's just that first question. And sometimes it hits them really hard, but it's such a valuable question to ask.
And I love that question because it takes people off guard because now they have to come to terms with what it is. And a lot of times it's that label they're so used to using. And
Mhm.
please don't get me wrong, listeners, and don't like start screaming at the your speaker or phone or whatever. That, well, I mean, I have a seafood allergy basically. And so, yes, I've been given an EpiPen, but I don't even believe that, right? And yes, if my throat closes up, and yes, sometimes my tongue does weird things and it's like I have a hard time breathing. Okay, not discounting. There are some, like, there are real things where your body just has an intolerance and you can't. So I'm not talking about,
Of course.
but it's the alignment effect. There's somebody I met a couple months ago and he did these woo-woo things on me.
Mm.
And he's like, he cured his wife from her gluten allergy. And so I'm like, wow. And how long did it take? He goes, an hour and a half. I'm like, okay, interesting. Hey, my daughter, read this book, see if it works. And she's like, what? No. And so that why question,
Mhm.
why are you holding on to this? And if it's real, it's real. That's not, I'm not discounting that at all. But why are you identifying? And so that word experience, I'm experiencing these things. That's powerful.
Hmm. And asking yourself why, it's okay if that question makes you uncomfortable. Maybe you've never sat with it before. That's okay. You have not been empowered with these tools. I rarely see people who have walked away from doctors, specialists, anyone they've sought help from with these kind of tools in their pocket to even sit in the discomfort of why. Now, granted, it takes a lot of humility to be able to do that. It's so much easier for us to ego up and be like, because this is who I am.
Mhm.
Okay, why? And it's okay if that makes you uncomfortable and you don't want to answer, but even that gives you some clues. Why is it making you uncomfortable? Great. Let's sit with that for a minute. It's okay that it makes you uncomfortable. Like, where can we give grace and acceptance to just dive into this messy question? It's okay. Why? And then why is it serving you? That's a really next one. If people are doing okay with that one, it's why does it serve you? What about this condition actually serves you? And then you can really get into it. It's like, oh, people take care of me. Oh, I don't have to take responsibility for these things. If you can have someone who can deeply answer those questions with just humility and just self awareness without hatred, judgment from you as the interviewer or as the coach or anything like that, and not self judgment, teaching people that it's a safe space to like, hey, like that answer is where you have been so far, but it's just because you didn't have the awareness. As soon as we know better, we can make more aligned changes. But it's about getting into that gunk and finding out the why of it in the beginning without judgment, without hatred, without self, deprecation, which we're more used to doing than the opposite. But it is a powerful thing to step into.
That's a whole nother topic because it's so true. I have a family member that she's constantly talking about how sick she is all the time, and she's not. She's healthier than me. But
Mhm.
she wants to be sick all the time. And so because of that, she acts like she's dying. And so it's that exact thing. How is it serving you? What is it?
Mhm.
And it's the attention. It's the getting out of having to do work. It's the excuse of why I'm not productive every day and I use the lay in bed. So it's so like I love this topic because I experience it every day, and I think there's so many that do. And if you can come to terms with how is it serving you or what's happening, then you can start to take control of it. And again, I'm not discounting the things that people experience every single day. I have been many diagnoses to the point where we played bingo with my kids of all the diagnoses and who has what. Pathetic. But I still accomplish things every single day. And I think many women can if they can come to terms with it, just like you did.
Mhm. Mhm. And starting small. I
Yeah.
think people think, oh, well, okay, so you guys can accomplish all these great things in a day. I didn't start there.
No.
That's
Yeah.
not where I started when I started my healing journey. It's been very small and sustainable and built over time. And so even just learning to celebrate small wins and create very small and sustainable goals, again, all of that takes humility and self-awareness as well.
That's true.
It's the way.
And I think also, like, if you can look in the mirror every day, this is what I had to do my freshman year of college when I got super, super sick and I was 2,500 miles away from any family, is I could look in the mirror and I could say, okay, I did the best that I could, and that's all I can ask for. So if I got a D on my test or if I got a C in the class, I'm used to like straight A's, but a C, I was dang proud of that C because I worked my tail off. And so I think that that's the difference is sometimes, okay, you might have been up here and now you're down here. That's okay because that's where you can go. Like my mile used to be 6 mile or 6 minute mile. No, not that. And I'll never be there again. So it's okay, right? And
Yes.
so that's the part that too is as long as you're trying and you're doing your best, and that's your best, so how you feel, not anybody else's measure, how you feel, that's what's important.
I 100% agree. Your best is different every day.
Yeah.
Your 100% that you can give every day is different. Sometimes you only have 30% to give, and if you gave 30% of that, like 100% of that 30%,
Mhm.
honestly, that's worth celebrating and giving yourself a pat on the back. As women, we fluctuate hormonally, energetically, all sorts of things. So some days are different than others, and that's okay. That's so normal. So learning to give grace, learning to have acceptance for self, and then learning to build sustainable, small habits that are going to help you expand out of identity if it's not serving you anymore into someone who you want to become is such, again, that empowering experience.
I love that. It's great advice. So you actually do public speaking, right? So what do you talk about with women?
Initially, it started with like I have presentations called like holistic healing for your hormones, and I would talk about internal environment, external environment, what you can be aware of internally, how it all works together as a community, right? Not just our bits. It's about so much more as women. And then externally environment, how your friends are affecting you, how the toxins in your home are affecting your internal health, how your stress, all of that came together. And then it expanded into more mindset stuff, and it's kind of a little bit of everything in that realm, though, speaking into people's lives of, I mean, I call it holistic self-improvement now because I partner with a company down in the States called Next Level University, and I became their MC, and we do a lot of group coaching and things together. But everything I do I still trickle in that little bit of, oh, you're a woman who's struggling with this. Here's some advice, take it or leave it. But like, I can't not sprinkle in hormone health anytime I talk about anything because it's so pivotal to women's holistic success, right? Again, it's that understanding that you are different every day. So if you're a female entrepreneur and you kicked last week and now this week you're feeling like a bag of garbage and you're giving yourself like shame and guilt for that, well, last week you were in the part of your cycle where you are energetic and more, I mean, articulate and everything. This week you're not. You're literally not set up for that mentally, physically, emotionally, everything. It's different this week. So, how can you still do what you want to do, but with the grace and understanding that you have shifted and are different? And so, like I said earlier, when I was helping women just with this physical stuff, they would still come up against that barrier of lack of self-belief, lack of self-worth, and self-understanding and self-awareness and their identity piece. And so my work and my speaking needed to expand into more holistic self-improvement so that they could have the belief, the worth, and everything they needed to tackle any journey they wanted to, whether it be their health, entrepreneurship, motherhood, anything.
I love that. That is
Mm.
fantastic. And it's such an important thing that we don't talk about enough. And that's why I love having you on
Oh, thank you.
for what you do and for the work you do. Because if you think of it kind of like a roller coaster, and I talk about this in relationships, I talk about this with yourself, it is that type of thing where you're at the high, but roller coasters go up and they go down and they twist and they turn. And so understanding that that is the journey of life and it's normal. It's
Hmm.
okay to take time for yourself and say, you know what, I'm out. I got to take some time because otherwise you burn out. And I love you're reminding us of the juggler who, if they fall down, all the balls fall down too. And that's you.
Hmm.
That's fantastic. So if people want to get a hold of you, if our listeners want to find you and learn more, how do they find you?
Yeah, honestly, my DMs are always open. I love chatting with people. I love hearing your stories. Sometimes it just is nice to be able to send a voice note to vent to someone who might understand your experience, right? And so any social media, like not any, I'm only on Facebook and Instagram. I literally don't understand the other
Yeah.
ones.
Or care.
And even so, Instagram and Facebook at Amy Lenius. And we also I run a free Facebook community as well with Next Level University with the guys. They're amazing. They have on a holistic self-improvement podcast every day. And because we believe in little improvements every day, we have a free Facebook group that anyone is welcome in who is dedicated to just small improvements every day and who want a like-minded community who can celebrate them along the way. And I'll give you the link for that as well.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Okay, last question that we didn't even talk about momhood because you mentioned that you're a mom with you. And so I want you to envision yourself sitting on a park bench and this 9-month pregnant woman's waddling over and she sits down on the bench next to you and you start talking. And if you could give her any advice at all about anything, what advice would you give her?
Just grace. Give yourself all the grace, acceptance, and understanding that you can, that this, especially if you're a first-time mother, you grow along with them.
Yep.
I tell that to my kids all the time. My son's, about to turn 12, and we had this rash on his skin the other day, and he was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "You know what? I don't know. It's my first time having an almost 12-year-old with this kind of rash, but let's find out together." Having that kind of humility around your kids, not letting them know that you know everything is so valuable, but also just, again, coming back to that juggler, best you can, small little things for yourself every day, Mama, so that you can pour into your kids as best as you can.
I like that. That's fantastic. Because my kids think that mom knows everything, and it's because I have access to Google is what they've learned. They're like, "See, you don't know everything." And so you're right. We discovered together now.
Yes, good.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, Amy, thank you so much for being on the show. And moms, I hope that you've listened to this and just realized that it's okay to give yourself that grace and that it's okay to acknowledge and advocate because you are the only one that knows your body. You're the only one that knows what's going on in your head and the emotions. And so experience them and do not discount them as some people want to do. So take that advice. And if you want to know more, find Amy or I and have a fantastic day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.